Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of Sourced by Cofactor, the show that cuts through the noise and gets to the good parts. I'm Ed Dodd. Great to have you with us. If you're here, I'm guessing you've recently spent a few too many hours feeling less like an engineer or product manager and more like a part-time supplier specialist. The part-time specialist, you know the drill, right? Managing these complex bills of materials, endlessly chasing down quotes, and just juggling all that supplier communication, all while you're trying to actually design something new. It's painful. It is. It's often the biggest bottleneck to actually scaling. So at some point, when the chaos of emails and spreadsheets get to be too much, someone, probably in a meeting, sold you on this idea of a centralized supplier portal. The ultimate fix. Ah, yes, the portal. The single pane of glass. The promise was beautiful, right? Total visibility, guaranteed structure. But those portals, once heralded as the solution, are now functionally obsolete. That's absolutely right. Today, let's get into exactly why those portals create so much friction. And it's friction that doesn't just frustrate your supplier, it actually slows your time to market. So it's not just their problem, it's also your problem. We're looking at this fundamental shift where modern AI is just eliminating the need for these portals. And the key here is that AI isn't trying to fix the portals, it's bypassing them entirely. So, our mission today is to dig into that supplier perspective, look at some genuinely surprising data points, and then zero in on how advanced AI is enabling a smooth, no portal workflow. To start, let's just quickly define what we're talking about when we say supplier portal or vendor portal. It's basically a digital platform selected and set up by the buyer. It's usually tied into their ERP, and it's for exchanging all the basics, right? POs, invoices, tracking info. The goal from the buyer side is undeniably smart. You're creating a single system of record, ensuring a clean audit. And from our side, the buyer side, that logic is, well, it's ironclad. We need visibility. We need status updates, tracking for every part. It should be more efficient than living in a giant pile of emails and spreadsheets. It should be. But this is where we run into a devastating invisible cost. The burden of maintaining that buyer's efficiency falls, well, almost entirely on the supplier, especially the small to mid-sized shops. Yeah, think about a precision machine shop. If they make parts for 30, maybe 40 different customers, they're suddenly required to maintain 30 or 40 different digital interfaces just for basic data entry. That's insane. And the stats really back this up. It's just massive repetitive work that suppliers have to absorb. 60% of suppliers report using 10 or more unique customer portals every single month. 10 or more. That's already a huge number of context switches every single day just to acknowledge an order, and it gets worse. 10% of suppliers, so 1 in 10, are juggling 50 or more portals monthly. 50? How is that even possible? Imagine being the admin at that small fabrication shop. Your real job is production and quality, but you're spending hours, literally hours every week, managing 50 different logins and clunky UIs just to say, yep, got the PO. So what does that mean? It means they're not spending their time optimizing their machines. They're hiring admin staff to be data entry clerks for their customers. Seriously. And that leads right to the next number. 40% of suppliers say these portals actually increase their workload. They make it worse. And the reasons are all technical. Every portal is unique, often with these, clunky interfaces. No standard workflow, and no simple API integration with the supplier's own ERP system. So it turns real work into just transcription. So if I'm a supplier and I have two customers, one with a clunky portal that takes me 20 minutes to use, and another who just works with my email, who am I going to serve first when things get busy? The easier one. Yeah, every single time. And that's the critical connection back to you, the engineer or the buyer. When you create friction for your supplier, you are implicitly making yourself a less desirable customer. And that boomerangs right back to you directly. It translates to delayed PO acknowledgements, late shipments, payment issues, all because the friction you introduced just disrupted your own timeline. Okay, let's shift focus to the listener. Maybe you're managing a new product introduction, an NPI, or you're a startup without a big supply chain team. Your first instinct is to find a tool, a portal to get organized and scale. And that is what we are calling the portal trap. You implement this shiny new system, but your reliable sheet metal shop, when they're asked to learn another complicated UI just for you, they push back. They just go back to what works for them, which is almost always email. But wait, if they revert to email, doesn't that just break your whole system? If your shiny new system doesn't catch that off portal critical reply email, say a price change or a new delivery date, you're suddenly out of the loop completely. And even if you do catch it, now you're the one doing the clerical work. You're manually copy pasting that data from the email into your spreadsheet or your project board, right? I've heard of people doing that manually for tracking numbers, just hours of copying numbers from a carrier email into other software. That's not scaling. That's just being a clerk. And that realization brings us right to the core tech shift we're analyzing. AI is making the portal unnecessary by, well, embracing the supplier's preferred workflow, which is email, and just making it intelligent. How does that work in practice? It sounds almost too good to be true. A great example is RH Electronics, a big operation, a very serious one, over 1,000 suppliers, more than 15,000 SKUs. They realized forcing partners into a rigid portal was just counterproductive. So instead, they deployed AI agents, and these agents manage everything through email almost exclusively. The workflow is so elegant. The AI agent sends a PO as a regular email. The supplier replies however they want, PDF, Excel, plain text, and the AI just reads that reply, extracts the critical data, and updates the ERP automatically. No human needed. So from the supplier's perspective, they change nothing. Zero. No new login, no clunky workflow, no tutorials. It's just business as usual for them. And for RH, it allows their 35-person team to stop doing all that clerical follow-up, the did you get the PO emails. They can now focus on actual strategic issues like managing risk and optimizing costs. Okay, but let's talk about the email paradox here. If we're relying on unstructured data like email, how do we handle the things portals were supposed to solve? Security, compliance, the audit trail? That's a key question, and it's what these new systems have to nail. The AI doesn't just read the email, it enforces structure and auditability on the back end. So it's like a translator. It's a translator and a compliance officer. The data is pulled, validated, timestamped, and recorded in your secure ERP just like it would be with a portal. The only difference is a supplier never had to do the data entry. The AI acts as your perfect, tireless data clerk. Okay, let's get into the mechanics of this, because it's more than just simple keyword spotting. These systems are normalizing some serious complexity. Let's look at an example. Take part numbers. Your fastener supplier A might call it FAS-00000000, but supplier B, who makes the same part, call it PN12-1234. A human clerk would struggle with that. A basic system definitely would. But modern AI systems are fine-tuned to recognize that both of those variants refer to your single internal part. So it's basically translating different dialects of manufacturing language in real time. It also matches different supplier names like Acme Machine Shop LLC versus Acme Machining to your single vendor record. And crucially, it can take an unstructured quote, like a free-form PDF, and turn it into a structured line item quote in your system, which removes the most error-prone step in the whole process, the human data transcription. And it goes further. These specialized AI systems can parse entire PDF invoices, automatically flagging if the price on the invoice doesn't match the PO. They monitor email threads for risk indicators, not just the word delayed. Not just obvious words, they can recognize nuanced language that suggests a potential problem, letting you intervene before a shipment is critically late. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, the implication is, well, it's huge. This whole shift is fundamentally about making it easier for suppliers to work with you. That's it. The simpler you make it, the more likely they are to prioritize your business, communicate early, and ultimately deliver on time. Again, the goal is to reduce the supplier's burden, but for our listeners, especially in electronics and hardware manufacturing, you need an even deeper level of specialization. General AI parsing just isn't going to cut it, no way. You need a system that understands the language. That brings us to solutions like Cofactor's Doc AI. It's really interesting because it shows how finely tuned these systems have to be. So, what does that fine tuning look like? Well, Doc AI is specifically trained to understand the documents in hardware manufacturing, like packing lists, traceability reports, complex purchase orders, often in messy formats like a scanned PDF. For some data, security is absolutely critical, so Doc AI is built for that. For example, it is hosted on the high security platform GovCloud, and it's compliant with standards like SOC 2 and NIST SP 800-171. So the speed of AI isn't coming at the cost of security. It's also worth noting that Doc AI is also integrated with Cofactor's unique full-service 3PL that specializes in handling sensitive electronic components. And that's the synthesis. We started with the pain of the portal. We end with systems that remove that digital pain and also solve for the physical delivery, storage, and handling of the parts. So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? The takeaway seems clear. Stop forcing your suppliers into systems they hate. It's the fastest way to become their lowest priority. Instead, there are maybe three key actions here. First, if you're looking at new tech, prioritize platforms with AI-based email integration. Let vendors use their existing tools. Okay, what's second? Second, audit your own internal process. Find the top three clerical tasks your team does: copy pasting, tracking numbers, reconciling data, and demand a solution that automates them. And third is a mindset shift. You have to view the supplier experience as a competitive battleground. If you're easier to work with, you win on speed and reliability. That's the core philosophy. The goal here isn't some perfect dashboard. It's shipping your product on time with the right parts at a predictable cost. And with that thought, thank you all for joining me on Sourced by Cofactor. I'm Ed Dodd. I hope we cut through some noise and helped you get to the good parts. We're really excited about our new PaaS service model, which includes Doc AI. It's free to use, so check it out today. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe and follow Cofactor as we continue to revolutionize electronic hardware.